Hi, I'm Engineer Hoist, and today's video we're going to talk about the upcoming combiners to be joining the Transformers Earth Wars. We've got Abominus back there for the Decepticons. Everybody knows Blot is missing, and he is definitely going to be the next bot coming. But there has been a question about which Protectobot will be filling out the Defensor roster. Well, during this week's event, we kind of got a confirmation of sorts, not definitely, but one of the bots has been ruled out. So for the Protectobots, it really came down to two bots. Groove, who was the original member during G1, and Rook, who was introduced during Combiner Wars toy line, although we did have Groove as the chest minion for Defensor, but Rook was the deluxe class figure that was released with the Protectobots, even though we did get a deluxe Groove later on. So there was all sorts of reasons why it could have still been Groove, even if they were basing it off of the Combiner Wars toys. But I always had a strong suspicion that it could be Rook, especially once they released Impactor and we saw his alt mode. Let's go ahead and see why. So way back in April, we got our first look at Impactor with a paint over, and I saw that alt mode, and immediately I said, we're getting Rook for the final Protectobot, because I mean, look at this, is the slide I had up there when Impactor was about to be released. That alt mode is absolutely 100% based on the Transformers Collectors Club version of Impactor, which was using the Rook mold. A lot of people might say Rook is going to be a recolor of Impactor, but we call it the Rook mold because Rook was the first bot to use that particular toy mold, and Impactor was a Collectors Club exclusive recolor, in fact retool, because he had a new head of that Rook mold. Now, a couple weeks ago, a lot of people were saying, oh, we're definitely getting Groove, because of this scene right here during one of the dialogues where Hotspot specifically name-dropped Groove and Blades. This is before we got Blades, but we knew we were building up to Blades. So here he's dropping Groove, Blades, but I keyed in on that ellipsis there, the ... which means there's more Protectobots that he's not mentioning. So even though this really clearly hinted to there being Groove coming as the 5th Protectobot, I was still a little skeptical. And if you've been watching my streams over the past few weeks, you'll know that I've been skeptical, and this was pointed out and I addressed it specifically, and it seems like I was right, because during this week's event called Team Up, we got this little screenshot. In fact, it was the first screenshot of the first storyline, where the Protectobots, they're actually over at McAdam's old oil house raising a pint of oil in memory of Groove. We're a Protectobot down. Groove didn't make it. So rest in peace, Groove. You have been eliminated from the contenders for being the final Protectobot to be part of Defensor. So, who's left? Well, the only Protectobot left is Rook. Sure, you could probably shoehorn in Inferno or Ratchet because they are emergency vehicles, but they were strong characters individually on their own. Meanwhile, Rook is a brand new Protectobot. So, here's Rook. This is the guy that I'm positive. It's not 100% confirmed because they haven't name-dropped him, and even though I'm generally privy to insider information, this is not insider information. This is just speculation based on things we've seen in the game, and we're getting this guy. I called it back in April, even probably earlier. There was a possibility of back in April, as soon as we saw Impactor, I said, this is going to be our 5th Protectobot. And now that they have basically killed off Groove in the storyline, it's gotta be Rook. The signs are all there. The Impactor alt mode, using this guy's alt mode, it means the character model is there and it's easy for them to use. And then also, it was down to him and him and Groove is out of it. So it's going to be Rook. So if we get a little closer look, I always love this guy's design because his head is kind of got one of those little Russian hats on there. But then he's also got like a face mask, so he's like of a football player. So he's kind of like a Russian football player. So maybe we should start calling him Comrade Rook or something. I don't know. But yeah, I'm calling it right now. By the end of this event, could be during next week's newsletter, might be the week after, we're going to see that it's going to be Rook coming in opposite to Blot. And I even said I thought that Rook and Blot would actually be very good against each other, because Blot is kind of a stocky, kind of a tank bot, which his ability is likely to be something to do with his stench, possibly some kind of an acid breath or something. And with Rook being a literal tank, he's a SWAT tank, it pairs perfectly with Blot. So there you go. Let me know what you think in the comments. Are you disappointed in Groove? I know a lot of you guys out there, especially the G1 fans, you guys are going to be disappointed that we're not seeing Groove. But, or are you happy that Rook is coming? Because honestly, I'm kind of happy to see Rook. Seeing a little bit more diversity from not just G1, but also IDW. We've got Armada. We've got all sorts of generational types of characters in the game, Beast Wars and everything. So I'm kind of happy to see it. I'm a little disappointed that they had to kill off Groove. It would have been nice to perhaps see him as the chest minion, but then that would have been another 6-bot combiner for the Autobots versus a 5 for the Decepticons, like they did with Menasor and Victorion, and I really didn't think that was going to happen. But, yep, we're seeing Rook. I'm calling it. It's not official yet, but it's practically official. Rook is going to be the next Protectobots. Okay, so that's going to do it. Let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you guys in the next one. I'm Engineer Hoist. Keep rolling, my friends, and we'll see you next time.